So I'm gonna talk about common punishments men use instead of taking accountability for their actions. Instead of being responsible, they would normally do certain things. So I'm gonna talk about that. So when a woman confront a man, you're in a romantic relationship with a man and you confront them about hurtful behavior or disrespectful behavior, whatever, right? What we see, instead of the man taking accountability for his actions, we see that most men respond by giving silent treatment. The man want to punish you for bringing up the issue, so he would give you silent treatment, he would stonewall you, he would become defensive, shift the blame, withdraw his affection, retaliate, or even manipulate your perception for what is happening. Maybe gaslight you. These are things that men do to punish their partner instead of taking accountability, right? These behaviors can turn a simple conversation about accountability into a whole battle where the woman might end up questioning herself for speaking up in the first place. And some men even might say things like, you're overreacting or you're overthinking things, just to avoid the consequences, right? So in this video, we're going to look at some of the common ways men punish women, right? Or use emotional tactics to avoid accountability, and we're going to look at what these behaviors are actually communicating, right? So first thing, one of the first ways the punishment that men use is stonewalling. Stonewalling, right? Stonewalling is just like shutting down. You shut down during the conversation, you shut down during the conflict, you just walk away without any resolution. And they're just doing this because they want to avoid feeling like uncomfortable. They just want to avoid accountability, right? They just want to walk away. They want to choose the path of least resistance. That's why they're doing that. They also do silent treatment, yes? Refusing to talk, refusing to engage, withholding their affection, disappearing, refusing to communicate. And the reason why they're doing that is to gain control of the situation and just avoid responsibility, avoid being accountable for their actions, right? The next thing men do is to just shift the blame, turn the issue back on you, right? Might say that you made me do it, or it's your fault, or it's because of you, So they just shift the blame to avoid reflecting on their actions, right? They want to make you look like you're the bad one, right? They want to try to make you think that you are the wrong one, right? It's just a manipulation tactic. They're using it to avoid apologizing. They're using it to avoid explaining, their wrongdoings, right? The next thing that men do to punish women when they bring up an issue and they don't want to take accountability is defensiveness, right? Minimizing your feelings, minimizing your concern, putting up a defense. Might say things like, it's not a big deal, or you're too sensitive, or you're overreacting, you're overthinking things, you're too hard to deal with, and all of these things. So it's just used to dismiss you instead of owning up to their mistakes, instead of admitting they were wrong, right? So they just push things under the rug to try to make you forget about the issue, and they just want to be lazy and get away with hurtful behavior. That's why they're so dismissive. They don't want to face the consequences of their behavior, right? That's why they're minimizing your feelings, minimizing your concerns, sweeping things under the rug, and just being defensive, right? The next thing is withholding affection, right? Being cold with you, being distant. After the conflict, they're distant and they're cold, right? It's used to punish you for standing up for yourself, right? And they just want to gain control of the situation. It's used to manipulate you into softening up your standards and softening up your voice, and it's used to make you let him off the hook by withholding this affection, right? The next thing is revengeful behavior, right? Acting out, cheating, or intentionally hurting you, and this is just used to shift the focus into retaliating, right? And the last one I'll mention is gaslighting, right? Make you question your reality, question your perception, make you question your perception, trying to make you look crazy, or they try to convince you that you're losing your memory or that you didn't remember correctly, right? Saying things like that didn't happen, and you're imagining things. So those are the common ways, that the common punishments that men use instead of taking accountability for their actions, right? And underneath all of these behaviors, it's just men having poor emotional regulation, not being able to control their feelings, not being able to interpret and control their emotions. The next thing is they lack communication skills. They might not have the vocabulary to explain how they feel or what they're thinking or why they do something. They just lack the tools to talk about things. They lack communication skills. They don't know how to communicate. They don't know how to have a proper conversation to resolve conflict. They might have never learned how to do that, right? The next reason why they're using these punishments is because they don't want to feel shame. They don't want to feel guilty. They don't want to be seen as somebody who made a mistake, right? They want to avoid feeling uncomfortable, feeling shame that they did something wrong. You don't want to feel guilty. Just want to escape these negative feelings for what they have done, right? The next thing, they might just have learned these behaviors from their parents or their friends, or society encouraged them to be like this. And the another thing with most men is that they lack integrity. They have not really worked on their character. They have poor character development. They are also they lack the emotional development, because when they were young, they stopped developing emotionally. That is not working. They didn't work on themselves, right? The another reason is that most men, they lack empathy. They lack understanding, and they from what I see, my own experience and other women experience, it seems like most men lack reasoning skills, especially when it comes to resolving conflict in romantic relationship. Most men, they lack listening skills. They don't know how to listen actively. We see that a lot. We see emotional laziness, just refusing to communicate, refusing to talk, just because they don't want to work on the relationship. They want to just get the easy way out and just want you to just let them off the hook, So, and one more reason is that most men see women as inferior to them and as less important. So when you bring up an issue or concern, or you try to make them apologize or take accountability, they just see you as not as important and inferior, and that is why they are doing these things, right? So a man not taking accountability should never make you surrender your boundaries, or it should never make you try to soften your voice, or walk on eggshells, or if every time you bring up a problem and you're met with silence, and you're met with he's shifting the blame, and he's being defensive and withdrawing from you, retaliating, or using manipulation tactics, this is a bigger issue, right? It's not just the original normal disagreement. This is actually a bigger issue. It's a pattern of how he resolves conflict, and you wouldn't want to continue to be in a relationship with somebody like that, right? Healthy relationships require two people to, acknowledge the harm they cause, have communication skills to communicate without punishing, and to take responsibility for their actions and to be accountable for their actions. So you should never have to accept mistreatment just to keep peace in a relationship, right? So basically, someone being angry that you held them accountable does not mean that you are wrong for holding them accountable. That means you respect yourself and you're doing the right thing for standing up for yourself. So that's the end of this video. I hope this helps. You could subscribe, you could like the video, and I'll see you in the next video.